The 11th of July, 1900, Volume 3. The sufferings of Louisa will render chastisements less vigorous. This morning, after having received communion and continuing in the same state of confusion, I was all huddled within myself, when I saw my adorable Jesus coming toward me all in a hurry, saying, "My daughter, break my fury a little bit, otherwise." And I, all frightened, said, "What do you want me to do to break your fury?" And he, "By calling my sufferings into yourself, you will come to placate my fury." At that moment, I saw as if he were calling the confessor by sending a ray of light, and immediately he placed the intention of having me suffer the crucifixion. The blessed Lord promptly concurred, and I found myself in so many sufferings that because of the intensity of the pains, I felt my soul go out of my body. When I thought I was about to breathe my last, and I was content that Jesus would receive my soul, I saw the confessor who, by saying, "Enough, enough," was calling me back into myself. Then Jesus said to me, "Obedience is calling you." And I, Lord, I want to come." And Jesus, "What can I do? Obedience keeps calling you." And so it seems that this new obedience did not allow the sufferings to go further, but indeed a cruel obedience for me, because while I seemed to seize the harbour, I was flung outside to navigate the way. Then afterwards, even though I was left in suffering, I no longer felt that thing of being about to die, and my benign Lord continued, "My daughter, if today you had not broken my fury, I had reached such a limit that I would have destroyed not only plants, but also men. And if the confessor himself had not intervened, I would have had no regard even for him. It is true that chastisements are necessary, but every now and then, when my fury advances, it is necessary that you break it. Otherwise, my daughter, how many scourges I would send." And while he was saying this, I seemed to see him all tired, saying, while moaning, "My daughter," or "My children, my poor children of mine, how reduced I see you." And to my surprise, he made me understand that after he had calmed down a little bit, he was to resume his fury, to continue the chastisements, and this had only served not to make him rage too much against the people. "Ah, Lord, placate yourself, and have mercy on those whom you yourself call my children." End of the reading. The 11th of July, 1919, Volume 12, The Heavens of the Soul. I am going through most bitter days. My lovable Jesus makes himself seen little or not at all, or like lightning flashing by. I remember that one night he made himself seen as tired and exhausted, carrying as though a bundle of souls in his arms. And looking at me, he told me, "Ah, my daughter, the slaughter that they will make will be such and so great that only this bundle of souls, which I am carrying in my arms, will be saved. What madness has man reached? You do not be disturbed. Remain faithful during my absence, and after the storm I will repay you at usury for all the privations of me, redoubling my visits and my graces." And almost crying, he disappeared. It is needless to tell the torture of my poor heart. Another day, a light almost flying over in front of me remained in my mind, which said that just as blessed Jesus extended the heavens over our heads, so did he extend a heaven within our souls, or rather not one, but many. Therefore, heaven is our intelligence, heaven is our gaze, heaven is the word, the action, the desire, the affection, the heart. With the difference, however, that the external heaven does not change, nor do stars increase or decrease, while the heavens of our interior are subject to mutations. Therefore, if the heaven of our mind thinks in the saintly way, as thoughts are formed, stars, suns, and beautiful comets are formed as well. And as our angel sees them formed, he takes them and places them in the heaven of our intelligence. And if the heaven of our mind is holy, the gaze is holy, the word, the desire, and the heartbeat are holy. Therefore, the gazes are stars, the word is light, the desire is comet that extends, the heartbeat is sun, and each one of the senses adorns its own heaven. On the other hand, if the mind is evil, nothing beautiful is formed. Rather, such darkness spreads as to obscure the other heavens. So the gaze sends flashes of impatience. The word thunders with blasphemies. The desires cast lightnings of brutal passions. The heart unleashes from its womb a devastating hail over all the works of the creatures. Poor heavens, they are obscured. How pitiful they are. End of the reading. The 11th of July, 1923, Volume 15. The greater the work God wants to do, the more necessary it is that the creature he chooses be unique and singular. The paternal goodness wants to open another era of grace. I was praying and abandoning all of myself in the arms of my most sweet Jesus, but with a thought in my mind which was saying, only for you this martyrdom of having to bother others, of being a burden to your ministers, as I cannot do without letting them meddle in my business. The things that pass between me and Jesus. The others are free. They enter a state of suffering and they free themselves by themselves. Yet how many times I prayed him to free me, but in vain. Now, while I was thinking of this and other things, blessed Jesus came, all goodness and love, and placing himself near me, told me, my daughter, the greater the work I want to do, the more necessary it is that the creature I choose be unique and singular. The work of redemption was the greatest, and I chose only one creature, endowing her with all gifts, never conceded to anyone, so that this creature might contain so much grace as to be able to become my mother, and so that I might deposit in her all the goods of redemption. And in order to keep my own gift safe, from the moment she was conceived until she conceived me, I kept her hidden in the light of the most holy Trinity, which was her custodian and had the office of directing her in everything. Then, when I was conceived in her virginal womb, being the true priest and the head and the first of all priests, I myself took on the charge of keeping her and directing her in everything, even in the motion of her heartbeat. And when I died, I entrusted her to another priest, St. John, a soul so privileged, who contained all graces, unique in the divine mind, unique in history. I did not want to leave her without the assistance of a representative of mine up to her last breath. Have I perhaps done this with other souls? No, because they did not contain so much good, so many graces and gifts, and therefore so much custody and assistance was not necessary. Now, my daughter, you too are unique in my mind and will also be unique in history. There will not be either before or after you another creature for whom I will dispose, as though forced by necessity, the assistance of my ministers. Having chosen you in order to deposit in you the sanctity, the goods, the effects, and the attitude of my supreme will, it was appropriate, just, and decorous for the very sanctity that my will contains, that one of my ministers should assist you and be the first depository of the goods which my will contains, so as to let them pass from his lap into the whole body of the church. What great attention is required of you and of them. of you in receiving from me, like a second mother to me, the great gift of my will, and in knowing all its qualities, of them in receiving them from you, so that the fiat voluntas tua, on earth as it is in heaven, may be fulfilled in my church. Ah, you do not know how much I had to give you to dispose your capacity, so that I might deposit my will in you. I removed from you any seed of corruption. I purified your soul, your very nature, in such a way that neither do you feel anything for them, nor do they for you, because, since the seed is missing, it is as if fire were missing to firewood. And even though I did not exempt you from original sin, as I did with my dear mother, by removing from you the seed of corruption, I worked another prodigy of grace, never conceded to anyone else, because it was not decorous for my will, thrice holy, to descend into and take possession of a soul which would be shaded even slightly by the slightest corrupted breath. My will would not have adapted itself to taking possession of her, to communicating its attitude to her, had it seen any seed of corruption in her, just as I, word of the Father, would not have adapted myself to being conceived in the womb of the celestial Mama, had I not exempted her from original sin. And then how many graces have I not given you? You think it is nothing, and therefore you give it no thought. And instead of thanking me, you occupy yourself with thinking about what I have disposed for you and about those I have placed around you, while I want that you only follow my will. You must know that this fulfillment of my will is so great as to be numbered among the greatest works which the divinity has operated, and I want it to be known, so that in knowing its greatness and the immense goods it contains, they may love it, esteem it, and desire it. 3 times did the Supreme Divinity decide to operate ad extra. The first was in creation, and it was without the intervention of a creature, since none of them had yet come out to the light of the day. The second was in redemption, and with it intervened a woman, the holiest, the most beautiful, my celestial Mama. She was the channel and the instrument I used in order to fulfill the work of redemption. The third is the fulfillment of my will to be done on earth as it is in heaven. That is, for the creature to live and operate with the sanctity and the power of our will, a work inseparable from creation and redemption, just as the sacrosanct Trinity is inseparable. Nor can we say that the work of creation has been completed by us if our will, as we decreed, does not act in the creature and live with that freedom, sanctity, and power with which it operates and lives in us. Even more, this is the most beautiful point, the highest, the brightest, and the seal of the fulfillment of the work of creation and redemption. These are divine decrees, and they must have full completion. And in order to fulfill this decree, we want to use another woman, and that is you, Louisa. The woman was the incitement, the cause for which man fell into his misfortune, and we want to use the woman to put things in order, to let man out of his misfortunes and give back to him decorum, honour, our true likeness, just as he was created by us. Therefore, be attentive and do not take things lightly. This is not about just anything. This is about divine decrees and about giving us the field to let us accomplish the work of creation and redemption. Therefore, just as we entrusted our Mama to St. John, that she might deposit in him and from him to the church the treasures, the graces, and all of my teachings, which I had deposited in her during the course of my life, when she was entrusted to me and I acted as priest to her, as I deposited in her, as in a sanctuary, all the laws, the precepts, and the doctrines which the church was to possess, And she, faithful as she was, and jealous of even one word of mine, deposited them in my faithful disciple John, so that they may not be lost. And therefore my mamma has primacy over the whole church. So I did with you. Since the fiat voluntas tua must serve the whole church, I entrusted you to a minister of mine, that you may deposit in him everything I manifest to you about my will, the goods contained in it, how the creature must enter into it, and how the paternal goodness wants to open another era of grace, placing his goods which he possesses in heaven in common with the creature, and giving back to her the lost happiness. Therefore, be attentive and be faithful to me. End of the reading. The 11th of July, 1926, Volume 19. Just as it was necessary to make known who they were who suffered more than anyone to form the kingdom of redemption, so it is necessary to make known she who has suffered for the kingdom of the supreme fiat. For quite a few days, my sweet Jesus had not told me anything about his most holy will. Rather, he would make himself seem sad in the act of striking the creatures. Today, as though wanting to go out of his sadness, because when he speaks about his will, it seems he puts himself in feast, coming out from within my interior, he told me, "My daughter, I want to cheer myself up. Let me speak of the kingdom of my supreme will. And my love and my life, Jesus, if you do not tell me all the secrets that are in it, not knowing everything, I will not enjoy the fullness of the goods that this kingdom possesses, nor will I be able to give you the return of love for the goods that you hide. And I would feel unhappy in the midst of so much happiness, because my I love you would not be flowing in everything that you possess in it. It may be small, but it is the I love you of your little daughter whom you love so much." And Jesus, taking my own words, told me, "My little daughter, you yourself are saying how necessary knowledge is. If it is necessary for you, much more so for others. Now you must know that in order to form the kingdom of redemption, those who distinguished themselves the most in suffering were my mamma and I. And even though apparently she suffered none of the pains that the other creatures knew, except for my death, which was known by all, and which was the fatal and harrowing blow for her maternal heart, more than any most sorrowful death, however, since she possessed the unity of the light of my will, this light brought to her pierced heart not only the 7 swords told by the church, but all swords, spears and pricks of all sins and pains of creatures, which martyred her maternal heart in a harrowing way. But this is nothing. This light brought her all my pains, my humiliations, my torments, my thorns, my nails, the most intimate pains of my heart. The heart of my mamma was the true sun. Though one can see nothing but light, this light contains all the goods and the effects the earth receives and possesses. So one can say that the earth is enclosed in the sun. The same for the sovereign queen. One could only see her person, but the light of my supreme will enclosed in her all possible and imaginable pains. And the more intimate and unknown these pains were, the more valuable and powerful they were over the divine heart to impetrate the longed-for Redeemer. And more than soul alike, they descended into the hearts of creatures to conquer them and bind them in the kingdom of redemption. So the church knows very little of the pains of the celestial sovereign queen, that one can say that she, the church, knows only the visible pains, and this is why she gives the number of 7 swords. But if she knew that her maternal heart was the refuge, the deposit of all pains, and that the light of my will brought everything to her, sparing her nothing, the Church would not speak of 7 swords, but of millions of swords. More so since they were intimate pains, and therefore God alone knows the intensity of the sorrow. This is why by right she was constituted Queen of martyrs and of all sorrows. Creatures can give a weight, a value to exterior pains, but they do not know enough of the interior ones to be able to attribute to them the right price. Now, in order to form in my mama first the kingdom of my will, and then that of redemption, so many pains were not necessary because since she had no sin, the inheritance of pains was not for her. Her inheritance was the kingdom of my will. But in order to give the kingdom of redemption to creatures, she had to submit herself to so many pains. So the fruits of redemption were matured in the kingdom of my will, possessed by me and by my mama. There is nothing beautiful, good, or useful which does not come from my will. Now, united to the sovereign queen came my humanity. She remained hidden in me, in my sorrows, in my pains, therefore little was known about her. But as for my humanity, it was necessary that what I did, how much I suffered, and how much I loved to be known. If nothing were known, I could not form the kingdom of redemption. The knowledge of my pains and of my love is magnet and spur, incitement and light, to draw souls to taking the remedies, the goods contained in it. Knowing how much their sins and their salvation cost me is chain that binds them to me and prevents new sins. If, on the other hand, they had known nothing of my pains and of my death, not knowing how much salvation cost me, no one would have given a thought to loving me and saving his soul. See then how necessary it is to make known how much he or she, who has formed within him or herself a universal good to give it to others, has done and suffered. Now, my daughter, just as it was necessary to make known to creatures who he and she were, and how much it cost them to form the kingdom of redemption, so it is necessary to make known she whom my paternal goodness has chosen first to form the kingdom of the supreme fiat within her, and then to give rise to its transmission to others. Just as it was for redemption, which was formed between me and my celestial mama first, and then became known to creatures, so it will be for the supreme fiat. Therefore, it is necessary to make known how much this kingdom of my will costs me, that so that man might enter once again into the kingdom he had lost, I had to sacrifice the littlest of all creatures, keeping her nailed to a bed for 40 years and more, without air, without the fullness of the light of the sun that everyone enjoys. How her little heart has been the refuge of my pains and those of creatures, how she has loved all, prayed for all, defended all. How many times she has exposed herself to the blows of divine justice to defend all her brothers, and then her intimate pains and the very privations of me that martyred her little heart, giving her continuous death. In fact, since she has known no other life but mine, no other will but mine, all of these pains laid the foundations of the kingdom of my will, and like solar rays, matured the fruits of the supreme fiat. So it is necessary to make known how much this kingdom cost you and me, so that from its cost they may know how much I yearn for them to acquire it, and from its cost they may appreciate it, love it, and aspire to enter, to live in the kingdom of my supreme will. I wrote this to obey, but the effort has been so great that I could just barely mention my poor existence, since because of the great reluctance, I feel my blood freeze in my veins. However, I can but always repeat, fiat, fiat, fiat. End of the reading. The 11th of July, 1938, Volume 36. How, with true love, anything one wants, the other does too. Every act of divine will is a way being opened between heaven and earth, the breath of God in the creature. I am always in the arms of the divine volition, and as I was writing, I felt the way to the great sacrifice of writing, and I offered it to my dear Jesus to obtain that the divine will may be known, wanted, and loved by all. Oh, how much I would give my life to let it be known by all. Since I was suffering with difficulty, I continued to write, and my sweet Jesus, to give me strength, told me, "My blessed daughter, courage, I am with you. I am so pleased when you write that with each word you write, I give you a kiss, a hug, and one of my divine lives as a gift. Do you know why? Because I see copied in these writings our life of eternal love, the copy of our operating divine will, also our love, repressed for 6,000 years, bursts out and finds relief for our flames in making known how much it loves the creature, to the extent that it wants to give her its own will as life. This so that on both sides we can say, what is mine is yours. Only then true love is satisfied, when it can say, we love each other with equal love. What I want, she wants. If there were any disparity of love, it would make both of us unhappy. And if one wanted something and the other something else, the union, the love would cease. Since my love is true love, knowing that the creature has a limited love and will, we can say that we love each other with one love, that we have only one will. If one doesn't become the will of the other, true love doesn't exist and cannot arise. Therefore, you should be happy to be used for the outpouring of my love, for many centuries repressed, and for the refreshment of my flames that are such as to make me delirious. So let's love each other with one love, and let's say together, what you want, I want. Say, Jesus, dissolve my will into yours and give me yours to live. Then, after we promised each other to live of one will, my beloved Jesus added with more tenderness, my good daughter, you must know that the power of each act done in my will is such that it opens a way to heaven for oneself and others who follow. Therefore, every act is a way that leads to heaven. All these ways, coming down from heaven, braid the earth. They spread everywhere and become safe paths and safe guides for anyone who wants to enter, guiding her up to the womb of her Creator. See then what an act in my will can do. It is one more way that opens between heaven and earth. How beautiful it is, living in my will. The act is not only a way, but as the soul is about to do it, the divine breath descends into it and, blowing, fills all creation with its omnipotent breath. Everyone feels the refreshment, the love, and the power of the creative breath that has the power to enclose everyone and everything, embalming with its divine and celestial air my operating will within ourselves as much as in the creature. It makes wonders to the extent that it can say, I am a divine act. I can do anything. There is no greater honour that we can give to the creatures and no glory we can receive from the creatures that makes us more glorified, happy, and triumphant than letting our will operate in their act. We feel locked in her act while still being free to operate in the human circle as only God can. Doing this is an exuberant love for us. We love our act in which we see the action of our power and unreachable beauty, our sanctity, love, and goodness, covering all, kissing and embracing everybody in our divine qualities. How not to love such a great act? We love she who called us and gave us her act, allowing us to do an act so great. How not to love her? She who served as our bearer to operate so many of our wonders. What wouldn't we give to her, and who could ever refuse her anything? It is sufficient to tell you that one who lives in our will leaves everyone behind. She is first in sanctity, beauty, and love. We can feel our echo, our breath in hers. She doesn't pray for, but takes what she wants from our divine treasures. Therefore, cherish always in your heart to live in our divine will. After this, he added, my daughter, our will circulates in all created things as blood in the veins. The primary act, the motion, the heat is always its own. But if my will finds a creature who recognizes it and lives in it, while it keeps circulating in everything, it concentrates in this creature, forming its own support to operate its marvels. And while with power and immensity, it never leaves anyone, it opens its communications with this creature for the benefit of those who will have ears to listen to them, intelligence to understand them, heart to receive them and love them. In this creature, it will deposit its grace and its keenness of love, while the human will living in it will serve as the room in which to continue its operating act, forming its center, its divine chamber, for its continuous expression of love. As the creature does her acts in my will, she is reborn in God and God in her, and these births will make new horizons arise, more beautiful heavens, brighter suns, new divine knowledge. For every additional act she does in our will, we feel more moved to make ourselves known. We feel more confident in placing our trust in her, since our will is in her. She will know how to keep with jealousy what we tell her and what we give her. Therefore, in every new birth, she will rise to new love, new sanctity, new beauty. Then, looking at her in a delirium of love, we say to her, our will makes you more and more beautiful, more and more saint, and the more you live in it, the more you grow and rise again in our divine being. For every new act you do, our will imposes itself to make us give you what is ours, and to tell you new secrets, grant you new discoveries of our love. If we did not always give to this creature, we would feel motion lacking to our divine life. This cannot be. Neither can she live without receiving. Otherwise, she would feel lacking the food of love, the tenderness of her Heavenly Father. Therefore, be attentive and recognize that you are being carried by the arms of the divine paternity. End of the reading. There are no more readings today.